This is Miles Bunting. He served in the army during World War II, received 2 Purple Hearts, and was captured by the Germans. His story is a harrowing one, but it's pretty much unknown outside of his family and friends. Unfortunately, he has since passed away, but I hope his story can have an impact on people who listen to it. Now, I know many of you might be confused at why I'm posting this video on a channel about the 1920s. Well, this videotape footage was given to me by a family member, and as far as I know, it has never been published anywhere else. And I always enjoy any opportunity to contribute to history, however small. I wanted to put his story out there, and I thought posting it on this channel would give it the most exposure. And, you know, Miles was born in 1924, so I guess you could say he was a product of the 1920s. In fact, his whole generation was, either being born then or growing up then. So in that way, World War II is kind of relevant to the 1920s. Alright, so now that I've justified myself, there's one small thing to note before I play the full interview. A small section of the interview was taped over, so about 2 minutes or so into it, there's a random cut to the theme song of Arthur, which is a bit jarring. There were originally 15 seconds of it, but I cut most of it out to take away the distraction and also to avoid copyright issues. But anyway, that's the background, so now I'll let the tape roll.
Mr. Bunting served from January 43 to the end of the war in 1945 and was discharged in 45, and he's just going to tell us some of his experiences, so thank you. So you went in, you were called up in January?
I was drafted.
Okay, and you didn't have any problem with going to do your share?
No.
You didn't feel it was a burden, you felt it was a necessary thing? Okay.
I went down to Fort Custer's where I was.
Fort Custer?
Yeah.
That's what we were just talking about, yeah. Have you ever been back there since and seen that beautiful, you know, there's an airport within, a few miles. It's the Kalamazoo County Airport. If you ever get down there, they've got a great museum. I mean, it's got a lot of interesting stuff. So was your basic at...
No, I was at Fort Custer for probably a week. Then I went to Camp Robinson, Arkansas. That's where I took my basic.
And what was that, 6 or 8 weeks?
6 weeks.
6 weeks, okay.
Then they sent me over down to Florida on the Gulf of the Carabella.
I've heard of Carabella or Carabelle.
Over on the Gulf Port over here.
Okay. And
we were there, we were training, we were amphibious. We'd go out in the boat.
Now, were you already infantry at that time? Did you know you had been assigned infantry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd go up on the boat and climb down the ladder and get into one and go up to the beach. And,
those rope ladders?
huh?
Those rope ladders?
Oh, yeah.
I know fellows that done it. They said that was dangerous in itself.
It was, yeah.
Get crushed between the ship?
Somebody get down too close to you and they'd step on your fingers, you know, up above you. Up there.
Sure. So how long do you think you were there, Miles?
Well, we were down there to Carabella. Well, I got down there in March in Carabella, and June, July, August, then we went up to Camp Pickett, Virginia.
I want to stop for just...
In Camp Pickett, Virginia.
And what was this training for?
It was just regular Army.
Okay.
Old bayonet practice. Mountains. We had mountain training. And there was about 3 or 4 of us that had never got a furlough. And we were supposed to get a furlough the next week.
From January to August, you'd never had a furlough?
No, never had one. Well, then they sent out word the following week, get ready to ship up to what the heck is the name of that camp? Anyway, it was up in Maine.
In Maine, okay.
Went up there, we went to Camp Miles Standish.
For cold?
Camp Miles Standish.
What were you doing? What was in Maine they wanted you to do?
Well, nothing. We just went up there because we was going to ship overseas.
Oh, okay.
Well, then we was only there for about 2 weeks, and they sent us down to Boston. We got on the boat, and away we went.
So in the fall...
I never got my furlough.
Never got your furlough.
Never got my
So would this be September, maybe October, even November of 43?
That was in September.
September of 43?
September, that.
Okay.
Then
So you never did get a furlough from January to September?
No.
Just training.
Then we went overseas. We landed in Cardiff, Wales. We was 9 days going over.
Now,
We landed in Cardiff, Wales.
so you went through the North Atlantic in the end of 43. The wolf packs were kind of dying down by then, but were you concerned about that at all?
Yeah, they said.
So you knew about it?
They sent out warnings a couple times that ships, ahead of us. But anyway, we went down to Scotland. Then we was there for, Cardiff, Wales.
Okay.
Cardiff, Wales.
Mm-hmm.
We was there for, I don't know, maybe a month or so. Then they shipped us down into England. But then we were in different camps in England.
Did you see anything on that map of Lee Zimmerman's that would look like where you were at?
I didn't see anything that was.
Oh, okay.
We were near Reading, England. We were near a town called Reading.
And you didn't find it on there anywhere, huh?
Well, I didn't look up.
Young man, you had ever heard of this, but he was, if not relieved for a short period of time, he was definitely in the doghouse for the private slapping. And at one time, they had him in charge of a cardboard division in England, just to make the Germans think, because they knew about him.
Yeah, they set up a bunch of cardboard tanks.
So you saw some of this?
I didn't see them,
but you had heard that, yes.
I heard about it, yeah.
So by the time you got there, were you actually assigned to the Third Army of Pattons?
No, not then.
Okay.
We just trained under him. We'd dig a foxhole, and then he'd bring his tank over, and he'd set the brakes, and he'd bury us, just about bury us with a tank, the dirt coming in.
Are you in it?
Oh yeah, we was in the hole.
Whoa. Did you ever see Patton?
Huh?
Did you ever see Patton?
Yeah, I talked to him.
Did you really?
Anyway, we got done with that and we went out and I listened. He said, "You'll never get to Berlin." He said, "By digging a hole." He said, "You got to get up and go, go, go," he hollered.
Yeah.
And then we trained with him, I don't know, about 3-4 times there. Well,
So
then I
you-
never seen him again until we got over in France.
But you saw him multiple times.
Oh yeah.
And you talked to him while you were training in England? I mean, you spoke a little bit?
Not personally, but a bunch of us was.
Okay, sure.
He was up on a speaker stand. And
He was talking and you were listening.
Yeah, he was talking, we was listening.
What was your personal opinion of him?
I thought he was a pretty good guy myself.
They said he was just a great general. He just he wasn't politically correct.
No, he liked his own way. He was quite a talker.
Yeah.
But anyway, then we went, after that, then we shipped overseas. Well, we went across the channel. We got over into France.
Okay, so this was about the 25th or 6th of June of 44, about 3 weeks after D-Day?
It was about 4 weeks, actually. It was about,
4 weeks.
I think it was about the first week in July. Probably.
First week of July of 44.
44, yeah,
Okay.
when we went over there.
Okay, and from there, Miles...
Oh, that was the first week of 43.
No, they landed, D-Day was June of 44.
Okay, yeah.
So you got there about July of 44.
Oh, July of 44, yeah.
So for a year and a half, you were training, getting prepared for this.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea when you were training what you were training for? As
Well,
far
yeah, we
as
had
an invasion of Europe?
Yeah.
Okay.
We figured probably it would be.
So you went in about a month after D-Day, about July 1st of
Yeah.
44, 3.5 weeks. You were with what outfit at that time then?
28th Infantry Division.
20th Infantry Division.
I was in the 28th all the way through.
So now if I'm reading or watching TV, if I see the 20th Infantry Division, that's you.
Yeah.
Great, and you were an infantryman.
28. They called us the Bloody Bucket. The Germans called us the Bloody Bucket.
Bloody Bucket,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, anyway, then we went on in. We went through St. Lo.
Now, was this when there was a guy named General McAuliffe, and he was the one who replied, "Nuts."
Yeah.
He was the one they wanted to surrender. Now, was this
That was
after...
at Bastogne.
Bastogne, I'm sorry, what did you say?
I say that was the Bastogne
Yes, what-
where they wanted him to surrender.
Okay, you're right. What was it you were at? You were just... Before I...
Well, I said then we went through St. Lo.
You know, when you said St. Lo, I went to Bastogne. Okay, I'm sorry. So at St. Lo, was there a lot of fighting at that time?
Yeah, there was a lot of it there. Yeah.
So you were involved in a lot of fighting at St. Lo?
Yeah, I had a picture in a magazine I've got. It's about the war of the 28th Infantry Division. I think it was me. It showed a picture of a guy up there in a machine gun on a hill, and I think it was me, but I can't say for sure.
Really?
Way back.
Now, you were a machine gunner?
I was a light machine gunner.
30 caliber?
30 air cooled.
Okay.
30 caliber.
Now, is that, when you say air cooled, water cooled with them big round ones,
They
weren't
had
they?
the big round tank with
Yeah.
them.
But this would have been smaller and physically
They
in
were
size.
smaller, yeah, they were
Could
air
you
cooled.
could you handle it as a one person, or did you have to have two people
Well, we had my assistant gunner.
to feed it?
He held the belt. the shells are all on a belt, you know, and you have
Yes.
to hold that to feed it into the gun.
Yes, okay.
Anyway, then we just fought, I don't know, other towns, then we ended up over in Paris. And
Okay.
we liberated the Free French, or we backed up the Free French.
Which
They
would be
wanted to-
Charles de Gaulle and his boys, yeah.
So then
So
we
you
sta-
did all the fighting, bleeding, and sweating, and then they acted as though they freed Paris, right?
Well, then we was there, I think we spent 2 nights in Paris. Then we went on out, and the 3rd day we was digging foxholes, we was in combat again.
Now, Paris would be to the west of Belgium. Is it Belgium right there? Is it right from Paris to Germany?
Well, let's see, I gotta think about the map, northwest.
I'm just not sure if Belgium fits in there, if it goes right from
Well,
France to Germany.
when we left Paris, we went to Belgium. Next, we went to Belgium.
Okay.
And we went, well, we fought all the way, but anyway, we ended up right on the Belgian border, a town called Compiègne,
Now, Belgium border with what? Germany?
with Germany.
Okay. Now, this would have been maybe October, November of 44, or September, October?
Probably something, and I don't remember
Okay.
the exact time.
Okay.
But anyway, this here Compiègne, that's where World War I was signed in a boxcar.
The Treaty of Versailles was signed there, huh?
Yeah, and the boxcar still sat there.
Uh-huh. Yeah, Hitler made France sign their capitulation right there.
Compiègne it was, yeah.
Compiègne, Belgium.
Was the name of the town, yeah.
That's where World War I was.
No, Compiègne. Compiègne was still in France. But
Okay.
Belgium, right on the Belgian border.
But that's
right
where
on
the
Belgium.
World War I, it was called the Treaty of Versailles.
That's where it was signed. The treaty was signed, yeah.
Have you ever seen that picture of Hitler dancing outside of that
Oh,
freight
yeah.
train car? So you
Yeah.
saw that train car.
Yeah.
I'll
yeah,
be
it
darned.
still sits there, yeah.
I'll be
And
darned.
then we went on into Belgium, and we fought through Belgium. We came down the corner of Luxembourg.
Now you make it sound very casual. We fought through Belgium. These
Well,
were horrible fights.
I can't remember all the battles we had in there. I mean,
But you actually, as a machine gunner infantryman, you were really involved in some
yeah.
serious, terrible fighting.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, and
And then we went, then we came into Germany. After we hit just the corner of Luxembourg.
okay,
Then we went into Germany. And we fought through Germany. I was only in Germany, I don't know how far, maybe 60 or 70 miles. We just got through the Hurtgen Forest. We fought through the Hurtgen
you
Forest.
fought through the Hurtgen Forest.
Hurtgen Forest.
Okay,
And then there was a little town called Schmidt about a mile beyond that. So we got it, we captured, well, we didn't have to do much fighting. We took Schmidt about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and in November it was getting dark.
yes.
So we didn't have time to search the buildings. We just went and dug a hole for a machine gun, and we all dug in, you know. Well, then the next morning, the Germans started shooting up flares quite a ways in front of us, and then we heard an awful rumble. We could see tanks a-coming. Well, the tanks were coming, and we figured they were too far away. We didn't shoot at them, but there was bullets landed by my machine gun, by me and the guy coming from behind us. So come to find out, the German soldiers hid in that town all night long, because we didn't have a chance to search it.
So you had them in front of you and behind you.
They were behind us. So anyway, then the tanks started coming, so we picked up our gun. We said, we got to get out of here. So we started running, and the tanks were coming down the road. And I got just about to the road, and that's when I got hit with shrapnel. Down I went. And the other guy in my ammunition carrier grabbed the gun, they kept on going. And I laid there, and the tanks were coming, and I was kind of stunned, you know. I really didn't know what happened. I know what happened.
You were conscious?
I was conscious, yeah. But anyway, the tanks were, I don't know, they were a quarter of a mile apart or something. Anyway, this one tank went by me, and I thought he was going to run over me, but he didn't. I was right on the edge of the road. And anyway, when he went
They didn't
by,
have any medical help for you?
Huh?
No medical help for you?
No, not them. Anyway, the tank went by me, and the road was on kind of a ridge, and we were right on the outskirt of this little town there.
Called Schmidt, Germany.
Schmidt, Germany. So I crawled and rolled across the street, and there was a downhill down there, and I rolled down that, and there was a house set down there. I was right on the edge of town. And I crawled in this building, it happened to be the basement. There was a door down there.
Do you have any weapon with you at all?
I had my .45 pistol.
You had a pistol.
Anyway, I went in that building and I laid down in that basement all that day, and the Germans were walking around the outside. I could hear them talking, but they never came in to check. And I was getting pretty weak. I was bleeding all the while, but I stayed there till dark. When it got dark, I thought I was going to try to get back to our lines. So I crawled out of there and I started crawling. I got, I don't think I even got a city block, and I just couldn't go no more. So I found another building and I crawled down in there. And I stayed down in there.
So these were Germans that our people had already went through, but they hadn't mopped up? Would that be?
Mopped up, yeah, no, they hadn't mopped up. I'll tell you what happened. We were in the 3rd Battalion.
3rd Battalion of the
112th of the 112th Division. The 3rd Battalion of the 112th, which is in the 28th Division.
Okay, see, I get it. So that'd be a regiment, the
112th Regiment.
Is bigger than a battalion.
We were the 3rd Battalion. Okay. Well, anyway, the Germans kind of sucked us in. They fell back and let us go right on in.
Yeah.
And then during the night, they circled around, they cut us off, they got in behind us. So that's what happened. Well, anyway, I stayed down in this basement down there, and the Germans were walking around. I could hear them. I had my .45 pistol. And I went over in the corner. There was a plank over there about that wide leaning up in the corner, and I went over and I leaned back against that plank. And I put that .45 pistol right in the small of my back. And I just stayed there. And I don't know how long I was there anyway. Pretty soon the door opened and 2 soldiers come down.
Two German
soldiers. And they walked up to me. I did have a pack of cigarettes. They took my cigarettes and they talked, and then one left and the other sat down and smoked a cigarette. He had one of his burp guns laying across his knees.
Were you unconscious?
Oh no, I was wide awake.
Oh, he saw you were alive.
Oh yeah, they came over to me over there.
But I didn't know if they knew you were alive.
He had that burp gun laying, but he never pointed it at me. If he would have, I wouldn't be here today. But anyway, he never pointed it at me. And this other guy had left, and pretty soon the other guy came back. He had a German medics with him. So the German medics came down, and he told these guys at Notion for to go on out. He could speak a little English. So he came over where I was. Of course, my clothes were all torn. I was all blood, and he moved me, and that .45 slid right down between my legs. He looked at me, and he said, "If my how did he say? Comrades had known you'd be kaput or something like that."
Comrade, if I'd have known, you'd be dead.
Yeah, but anyway, he had some stuff he put on me, some salve or something. When he didn't have no bandage, you just put some medications he had on.
Now, is that what you're thinking? What I said when you said? Comrade, something, be kaput?
Would be kaput. Meaning
So
I'd been dead if
right.
they'd known I
if they
had
didn't know you had that pistol.
Didn't know I had the pistol, yeah. So anyway, we stayed there till dark. And then they brought in a German ambulance, and they put me in that.
So they tried to treat you well.
Oh, yeah, they did, yeah. So anyway, we drove, I don't know, half the night, and we came to this place, and they just stopped. And I was the only one in the ambulance. And they took me out and took me in the building, laid me on a bed. And I laid there, and the next morning when it got daylight, why, 2 German soldiers came in and had a guy with him. I figured he was a doctor. But anyway, he had a bag with him, and he pulled my pants up and looked at it, and had a little probe. He went in there, and he took out some shrapnel and 2 pieces of bone. He pulled it out, and he kept saying, "Dopsha, Dopsha."
What's that mean?
I don't know what it meant.
Don't know.
Dopsha. But anyway, he got done with that, and he put a little stinking Band-Aid on it.
I can find out what Dopsha means real quick if you'd like me to.
Okay. But anyway,
a friend of mine
he put a
speaks
Band-Aid
German.
on it, and I never seen him after that.
Okay.
Never saw him again. Well, when I was captured, I had 2 white handkerchiefs in my pocket. And then after they got done with me there, they carried me over in this other building, and that's where the wounded American, there's about 40 of us in there. And they took me over there and put me in a bed over there. And I had these 2 white handkerchiefs, and there was 2 guys were in charge. They weren't wounded, and they'd take my handkerchief and wash it out, and let it dry out, then they'd put it back over here again. So that was what I had for my medication.
Okay.
We was there.
Now this is November of '44, November 3rd or 4th or 5th.
Yeah, it was in it was probably the 5th or 6th of November.
Okay, and you were in Germany, and this is around this little town of Schmidt.
Yeah, a little town of Schmidt. Well, then we left.
Which Schmidt would be in the northwest corner, probably.
Northwest, yeah. I was coming in down there.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, then where they took me in the ambulance, I wasn't in Schmidt no more. I was near Bonn, Germany.
Okay.
Bonn, Germany.
Schmidt is in the southwest.
Southwest.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Anyway, they took me into Bonn, Germany. That was Stalag 6G.
So you were in Stalag 6G?
6G, and I was there till Oh, probably the 15th or 16th of December.
Oh,
Then
that's
they took us out and put us in a boxcar, and we was in there for 4 days and 4 nights locked in. Didn't have, the only thing we had to eat, we stopped, and the second day we stopped, and they opened the door and they threw us in a bunch of sugar beets.
Now, how many people were there,
There was probably
Miles?
25 or 30 of us in this boxcar.
All wounded, or you were the only wounded?
Most of them were wounded.
Most
yeah.
wounded?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they threw us in them sugar beets. We didn't have no water. We didn't have no bath facilities.
In 4 days. 4
So
days.
we
okay.
decided we'd keep this corner clear over here, and anybody had to go to the bathroom, well, that's where they went, over there in the corner. Well, then we was in there for 4 days, and they finally took us up to this town called Falling Boston.
Falling Boston.
Falling Boston. And that's where Stalag 11B was, and that's where I was up there in 11B up there.
So you were there for about 5 months, 4.5, 5 months.
About 5.5 months, and
Five
that's
and a
where I
half.
was liberated from, was up there in 11B.
Liberated by the English under British,
armor came through, yeah.
under Montgomery probably.
Yeah, they came
I think it was the
through-
British 8th.
They came through with their tanks, and they came right through the main gate, knocked it down, and they kept right on it going. Well, they threw us off some rations, what they had in their tanks. But the Germans knew they were coming, so the Germans had pulled out the day before, but there were some old men, some German guards, old men there, and they just stuck their hands up, you know, when the tanks came in. And
That's probably a good thing to do if somebody's got a tank running at you. Just stick up your hands.
well, then we were there, and we had in there, they'd come in and count, see how many was in the barracks. And then they'd bring our rations for us.
Yes.
Well, it lasted for about, I think, 3 days. A guy would die, we'd put him up in the upper bunk. They'd put him up in the upper bunk, and then we'd draw rations for him. Well, that
Oh,
went
I
on
see what you mean.
for
Get the
about
extra
3
food.
days, and they finally caught on to it. And they said, this one our German guy could speak a little English. And he said, if that goes again, he said, more you dead guys will be laying up there in them bunks, just like that, he said. So we
Yeah.
cut that out. And then, well, they had, I guess I told you, they took my shoes away from me.
Yeah, but tell me for this. So almost as soon as you were captured, they took your shoes?
Yeah, when I first got captured, they took my shoes away from me.
So for 5.5 months in Germany, in the
No
bitter
shoes,
cold,
but
no
I did
shoes.
Get some rags. I got some rags. I wrapped them around my feet.
And you think maybe they took your shoes just because they needed them for
Well, they needed them,
their
yeah,
fighting men?
evidently. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we were in the barracks, and there was an SS group right across from us, soldiers. And they would get out there, you know how they would march some SS troops in the
Yeah.
wintertime. They
Storm.
made us fall out there and watch them.
Hobnail boots?
Hobnail boots, and they were strutting around out there. We had to stand out there and watch them. It was cold. All I had was my shirt that I got captured in, and I still had my bloody old pants on and everything. But anyway, we would stand out there and watch them, and then finally, they let us go back in. And then they called us out there another time. We all had to go out. I
Hold on,
told
hold
you
on.
yesterday that
I want to say something here real quick. What Miles is about to tell you, whoever watches this, is fairly graphic, and it's the horrors of war. So if you don't want to hear it, quit listening to this tape right now. But go ahead, Mr. Bunting, and tell me what you're going to say.
Well, there was these 2 Russian soldiers that had escaped, and they caught them a couple of days later, and they brought them back to our camp. And then they called us out one morning, and these down to the end of this parade field, they had a post. There's a post up the one across and one down, 2 posts with a crossbar on them. And them Russians were hanging there by their hands. They were alive, and they were hanging. Their feet were just barely touching the ground. And they we stood there watching them, and it was cold, it was windy, and we stood there probably 15, 20 minutes. And finally a car drove up, and a German officer got out. He had a German dog with him.
And you don't know a name or a rank or anything like that?
Nothing, just an officer was all. Anyway, he came out there, and he looked at us and grinned, and the German guard, well, we had 2 or 3 German guards, but one could speak English. And he said, now pay attention to what you're about to see, because you think you can escape, you'll get the same treatment. So this German officer walked up to this one dog and took a cane and tapped him on the testicles, and the dog reached in and grabbed and shook his head and just tore him all to pieces.
Tore his testicles and penis
tore his
off.
testicles out. And then he went to the other guy, and he'd done the same thing to the other guy. But the other guy, as the dog lunged, looked at me like he kind of turned sideways. He didn't get ripped near as bad. And then this German officer turned around and looked at us and gave us a big smile, took his dog, got in the car, and away he left. Well, we stood out there. They kept us out there probably 20, 30 minutes watching these guys. They were still alive. One act like he was just about out, you know, unconscious. And then the blood was all over us, and there was snow on the ground. And finally, they let us go back in the barracks. Well, that was the end. We never heard no more about them.
They both died.
They both died, yeah. And then we were just in that camp. We'd sat out there. Well, I could walk around. The first camp I was in, I couldn't hardly move, but I could move around. And when it got later in the summer, we'd sat out there in the sun, and they had lice all over us. And we'd squeeze them lice, you know, pick them off from us. And there wasn't much to do there. We just sat around there, and finally, the British came through and liberated us. And
Now, you said you weighed you're about 6 foot or 6'1", aren't you?
I'm about
Miles?
6'1", yeah.
About 6'1", and you weighed 172 pounds when you were
I figured
captured?
around 172.
And and when you got liberated by the British, which would be mid-April of 45, you think you weighed
British,
what?
That's after it. Then they flew us back over to England.
And what do you think you weighed then?
They weighed me. I weighed 97 pounds.
97 pounds. So you lost 75 pounds off an already lean frame. At 175 pounds, you were very lean to begin with.
Anyway, I got over there in the 7th General Hospital over there. And there were some more prisoners in there, and the guys had been wounded. But anyway, I went in there and this doctor looked at me, and my wound where it was still open, draining a little bit. There was a hole in there about the size of a match. And that doctor looked at me, he said, "You're lucky." He said, "That never closed off." He said, "That kept draining. Otherwise you'd have got gangrene.
The infection.
You'd probably been gone."
The infection, sure.
Yeah, infection in it. So, I mean, then they really started feeding us. The more they give us, we could eat any time we wanted. We called for food and they'd bring it in to us. And then I was in there for, I don't remember what day we left there, the camp, and then they moved us down right in the main part of London, into apartment building down there. There were 6 of us guys. They called us the Crazy Six. We kind of hung together. And we all roomed down there. We had 2 rooms down there, and we was in the rooms down there, and there was a mess hall about a block from us. It was downhill. Well, the English had them big copper pennies. They were large pennies, and we had some of them. We'd take them, roll them down the hill. Them young kids would go out fight for them. Oh, they were skinning up their knees and everything. So the head guy, he made us quit that. We had to quit that.
Yeah.
So anyway, finally we stayed there. Finally they said we was going to go home. So we went down to the dock. The boat was on there, and they put us on a little boat to take us out to the big ship. That we came back on a LCT, a landing craft. Tanks,
okay.
It was a small one.
You come all the way across from England all the way back to
18 days.
What, into New Hampshire, Maine, Boston, Massachusetts, somewhere?
No, we landed at Norfolk. Virginia.
Norfolk, okay. I was in Norfolk.
Virginia.
I was in Norfolk for 2 years in the Navy.
Oh yeah. Anyway, they took us down there. We got on this craft there to go to the boat, and there was 3, 4 old German or English guys sat there. One of them says, "Well, Yanks," he said, "if we have another war," he said, "the Yanks will already be over here. You won't have to come back again."
So you were one of those guys the British said oversexed, overpaid, and over here, huh? In 44 or 40?
45.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but you were there also before you went over. So, as I've heard about the Americans, the British thought you were oversexed, overpaid, and over here. And you know what you guys would say? You were under Ike. You were underpaid, undersexed, and under Ike.
Under Ike, yeah. Anyway, then I don't know. I forget when I got back to the United States. I think I got back there in June, the latter part of June.
June of 45.
June of 45, yeah.
Okay. So did you end up at a VA hospital for quite a while?
No. Never was in a hospital after.
So you...
I came back. We landed at Norfolk, Virginia, and there was a camp there, Camp Patrick Henry. Camp
Okay.
Patrick Henry. I stayed there for 4 days, then we got on the train and went over to Fort Sheridan, Illinois, outside of Chicago, Fort Sheridan, and that's where I got my furlough from, was Fort Sheridan.
Finally got your furlough, huh?
Finally got my furlough, then I went home. I was home...
2.5 years to get your furlough, huh?
I was home for about 2.5 months before they called me back. I was supposed to report it down here to Florida. I forget the name of the camp. And then I got a telegram and told me not to just forget that. I had another 2 weeks furlough, you know. Then I went down to San Antonio, Texas. And that's where I was discharged.
That's where you discharged in the end of somewhere September, October of 45?
I got home, I got discharged in November, 45, yeah.
Now, your injuries, did you draw some percentage of pension or
Oh,
anything?
yeah,
Good,
yeah.
good.
I started out, well, I tell you, when I went in for my discharge down there in Texas, of course, we had the strip, you know, and I went in there and the doctor looked at me and he said, what happened there? Well, I said, I had part of my hip blew off with shrapnel. He said, we don't have no record of that. Our records, well, we were POWs and the records hadn't caught up yet or something. So anyway, he said, we can't give you nothing, but he said, go down, see the Red Cross down there. So I went down to the Red Cross and told them they looked at it and everything. And I got home and I was home about 3 weeks and they sent me a letter, said I was awarded 20%.
20%. So you get that the rest of your life?
Oh no.
Oh, you just got it for...
Not that, but anyway, so then I started in Michigan, going to the VA hospital in Michigan.
At Fort Custer?
Oh no,
Or where?
I went down to Detroit.
Detroit, sure.
I went to Detroit and Ann Arbor and Saginaw all over.
My dad was at Saginaw quite a bit
Oh yeah.
in
Anyway,
the
I
90s.
I kept going back down there and they wouldn't do nothing. They'd give me the same old runaround. So I went down there. I went down there about the 4th time I'd been down there. And I'd seen this doctor before. No, I hadn't seen this doctor before. First time I'd seen him, and I went in there and he says, well, he said, where was you wounded? And I said, in my side here. He says, where was you at? I said, I was in Germany. He said, when did that happen? I said, November the 3rd. He says, what are you trying to pull? He said, we wasn't even in Germany in November of 1944. I said, listen, Buster, I said, do you know how to read? He said, I read the papers. Well, I said, I don't think you can even read. And I got up and walked out. I left him right there.
So he thought you were trying to pull a con on him?
Yeah. Then I got a notice later on to come back down again, and I told him I wanted a different doctor. So she took my records, and I followed her down the hallway, and I sat down pretty soon the door opened, the guy came out, and the doctor told me, come on in. So I went in there, and he had me stripped, you know, and he looked me all over. He felt down here, and he had me run in place, you know, and he looked at my side. Well, put your clothes back on. Well, I said, I'll put them back on, but he said, I'll be back down here in a month or so when they call me. I said, I'll be back down. He said, I think I can do you some good. So about a month later, I got a letter from them. They jumped it up to 40%. So they raised it on up to 40%. Well, then I kept going back in Michigan up there, and they weren't doing no more for me. So that's when we came down to Florida. I had some of my Army buddies down here. And they told me down there, this one room, Doris Jenks was her name, and she was the head of the veterans for pensions and that, you know. So they introduced me to her. So I went and seen her. I went over to St. Pete to a meeting over there, and I went and seen her quite a few times. And then they got me. Well, this Army buddy of mine had been to the hospital over here in the Newport Richie, the Veterans Hospital. So he told me about a doctor over there, Dr. Miller.
Mm-hmm.
So I went over there and I started doctoring with a Dr. Miller. And it stayed the same, and then I had another physical someplace, I forget where it was. Anyway, they said if you get 60%, you're eligible for 100%. Well, anyway, I got my 60%, but I never heard no more about it. So we was going to go home the 1st of April, and my doctor over this, now he says, you stick around here the 9th of April. He said, we got a lady coming that handles all this pension for disablement, you know. So I stayed down there and I had to talk with the lady, and well, she says, maybe we can help you out. And I got up and left. I went home, and probably, I don't know, it wasn't over a month later, I got a letter from them, said you're awarded 100%.
Really?
So that's what it is today, 100%.
Oh, good.
So.
Good.
But I come down here, I go over to St. Pete, Dr. Miller,
Uh-huh.
and when I'm down here for the winter, I see him about 3-4 times. He brings me in for a checkup, you know. I said, I want to check on you, so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that,
Newport Richie, Miles.
huh?
Newport Richie.
Our Newport Richie, yeah.
Okay.
Newport Richie.
When you were in your, when you were doing your fighting, which would have been July 1st to November, were you ever involved in any hand-to-hand combat, or was it all a little further?
So I was a machine gunner. They weren't that close to me.
Good.
I mean, they were out here someplace, you know. But
Okay. Do you have any regrets as you've gotten older about anything that happened? Not sure how I want to ask.
for shooting them,
Yeah,
no.
that's it. Everybody said the same thing. You're either going to shoot or you're going to get
You're
shot.
going to shoot or get shot.
Yeah.
And one thing that, now if there'd be fiber, see, we had 2 guns in our weapons platoon. We had 3 60mm mortars and 2 air-cooled machine guns. And of course our machine guns would be set up sometimes, a quarter of a block away or something like that, you know, we got
So
a good view.
Yeah.
And there'd be German soldiers out there where he was pulling his trigger and I was pulling my trigger, so I don't know.
So you don't know.
You don't know.
But you saw them fall, so you know they were
Yeah.
shot. Yeah. I've never met a fellow that he said, you know, you were put in a position where you had no choice.
Yeah.
You know, and I also like to ask the veterans their thoughts about the atomic bomb being used. There's a little bit of revisionist history of people a generation younger that think it was terrible, and I'm just curious.
No, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
I've never met a man, Miles, or a woman that feels that it wasn't the right thing to do.
If they wouldn't have done that, think of them, how many soldiers we'd have lost if we'd invaded Japan.
And I know guys that went there. I know guys that were there by September of '45. You know, it was all finalized September 2nd on the Missouri, on the battleship Missouri. And I know guys that were there by September, and they every one of them to the man say the same thing.
Yeah.
So. Well, mostly I would like to thank you then for taking the time to sit and talk with me, and I appreciate your service. Again, I like to tell people that I think that your generation saved my generation. I was born in '46 from having a bayonet stuck in my ear. So thank you.
No, that's that's one thing. I didn't have a bayonet. I had a .45 pistol and a machine gun.
Yeah.
They didn't get too close to me.
Okay, well that's good, because this Marine I was telling you about, he did.